You got Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365, and we've got our buddy, one of the most handsomely clad individuals we have as a regular guest here on Birds 365. And we just got to make sure if his voice is working because he told me yesterday I got a bit of a cough. How you sounding? How you feeling, Domo?
So far, so good.
All right. Sounds 100%.
Happy birthday to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And we'll try not to make you scream.
We're not looking good for 4, though. I will say that. We've had a hard 4 years.
4 sounds like, it feels like 20. And I know you've been there, done that, so we don't have to discuss that with you. Avonte Maddox back on a 1-year deal, probably incentive laden. It looks like it's a win-win for both parties, but they've done this now X amount of years in a row. All right, Avonte's our best player. We're going to use Avonte. Avonte's going to contribute for us. I guess Avonte can't play because he's got a ham, he's got a pec, he's got a this, he's got a that. We know he's a talented player. We know it's a small financial commitment, but the commitment is there that you're going to give him a shot and believe in him, and he's going to get practice reps, and then if he gets hurt, you're spit out of luck again. Was he just too shaky a ship to even put into the mix, Namo?
Well, I mean, how many games has he missed over the last 3 years? Quite a few. I mean, clearly you can't count on him. I think they're hoping Isaiah Rodgers is going to end up being their slot guy, that he gets cleared by the league for the gambling thing, and they'll have him, and then they'll have Maddox as an insurance policy, and hope that he stays healthy. I mean, they sign a lot of guys like this. I mean, Maddox is a guy they're bringing back, but in the past, Howie has signed a lot of guys, to 1-year deals that he's just, if they stay healthy, talent's not a question. It's just a matter of their health. And he gambles that enough of those guys will stay healthy to help his team succeed.
Yeah, and I think, at the price it's going to cost, why not? Nobody was out there and nobody was running to sign him. So obviously the other teams have the same type of concerns. It's not because of his performance on the field. And I think the Eagles learned from last year, Damo, and the fact that Jody and I were just running down the names of the bodies they rotated in there. Mm-hmm. They have better contingencies, even if it's just you mentioned Rodgers, but they signed the kid from Las Vegas, Tyler Hall, who's a natural slot corner. Zach McPherson will be back from his torn Achilles for the final year of his rookie deal, so he's in the mix as well. They have a lot more contingencies and probably better contingencies than throwing guys out of position like Bradberry and Cindy Brown and Eli Ricks. So I think at least they learned from it.
Yeah. Although the one area that still concerns me is on the outside as far as contingencies. Maybe Darius Slay and stays healthy. Maybe Bradberry turns it around, has a better year and stays healthy. But I'm assuming that that's going to be their top priority in the draft, is going to be bolstering that cornerback position with young corners early on. So, Kelly Ringo is a possibility.
I like him, Damo.
Yeah, I know you do, and I don't hate him, but I don't know if he's ever going to be a great corner. I mean, they need to find a great corner.
That I can't go down that route, but yeah. I thought he showed. And look, he couldn't get on the field. They played Ricks before him, and all of a sudden they needed him on the field late, and I was expecting a disaster, and he held up. Maybe he's one of those guys who's not a great practice player, and all of a sudden the red light comes on game day, and he performs. He's got a lot of talent. There's no question about that, and he's very young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll see how Vic is able to develop him. And I was talking about this yesterday with Jody, and I forget which of our guests, but I think Bradberry's a perfect fit for Fangio. I really do. He's not going to move him around. He's too smart. And I'm talking about Vic.
Right.
He's not going to play him in the slot. He's not going to ask him to play press. He's going to make him a pure zone corner. And I wouldn't mind seeing that next year. I want to see how it develops I'm not going to, I get it. If Quinyon Mitchell's there, I'm taking Quinyon Mitchell. But if it's not, I'm not going to panic. I'm going to say, let's see what Bradberry can do with Vic Fangio. Am I crazy?
Well, you're more optimistic than I am about Bradberry. But you just don't know how to figure a guy with a up, who's done what he's done the last few years, gone from absolutely horrible in with the Giants 2 years ago or 3 years ago to, helping the Eagles get to the Super Bowl, and then last year, couldn't do anything. So, maybe he turns it around. I don't know. What is he? 32 now? I'm not.
No, he's only 30. I think he's going to be 31. He's 30, so he's still, he's got at least a couple years on Slay from an age perspective. But I mean, to me, his game has never been predicated on speed to begin with. So I think, and a lot of this, I'm basing on Vic Fangio. I think Vic is just smarter than Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, and I'll use them more better or correctly. I think
a rock is smarter than Matt Patricia.
Shot on goal score. All right, and here's where I kind of disagree on John. John thinks Bradberry could be back because of his talent level and his fit. I think he could be back because I think Howie Roseman's going to do exactly what he did with Avonte Maddox with James Bradberry. They're going to get to a date where Howie feels comfortable, right at before, maybe even after June 1st. They still haven't used the June 1st designation, so they could do it if they wanted to cut him in May. That's when the Giants cut him in May. And they said, listen, you can take the reduced salary we're offering you, or you can become a free agent. And there's no spots out there on the market. So we're telling you our offer is going to stand up against anything you're going to get out there. So you make the call. Do you want to come back and play for our number, or do you want to take free agency? Last time Giants did that, he said, I'll take free agency. He made it work for himself. He came here and had a great season. Will he do that again? I don't know, but I guarantee you his cap number will not be what it's at when the season starts. His contract number will not be what it's at. Howie is going to put the squeeze on him, and he's going to have to make a decision whether he wants to be cut or not.
Yeah. And again, what they do in the draft regarding cornerback is going to determine a lot of how much they really care about keeping this guy.
Yeah. No question. I think it's about, can they get better? If they can't, I think, he's there, break glass in case of emergency.
Right.
They got him under contract. He's on the books till with 75 Boyd years to who knows when, as the Eagles typically do business. But Jordan Mailata, man, I was talking, Domo, it's always stuck with me. We were talking to Jeff Stoutland back during the days of the AAF, the grand days of the Alliance of American Football. And at the time, I always thought Charlie Ebersol ran that league, kind of a con man, but he was trying to say, hey, we're going to be a real developmental arm of the NFL, which was never going to happen. But and I remember you were the one who asked Jeff Stoutland the question, would you at the time, Jordan Mailata wasn't Jordan Mailata. He was just the raw, not playing end of the roster, injured, had some back injuries. Would you let him go over there? And Stout, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, said, I don't want anybody touching this guy. You're screwing it up.
Yeah.
How amazing is the development of Jordan Mailata? He's so good now. I think people forget. We talk about Davion Taylor as raw. Davion Taylor's like, Dick Butkus compared to Jordan Mailata when it coming up, and he played one game of high school football, but he played in college. It's unbelievable where this guy has come from.
Jordan Mailata's name is going to be on Jeff Stoutland's tombstone. It's going to say, I took this guy and made him a Pro Bowler. I mean, it's just remarkable. There's no greater testament to how good Stout is as a offensive line coach than Mailata. I mean, to take a guy who didn't even know how to line up, who never
needed help getting his helmet on. I remember him telling that story.
Yeah, and turned him into a left tackle, no less. I mean, we're not talking an interior, you made him an interior lineman, you made him a right tackle, you put him at the most important position on the offensive line and made him good. It's just remarkable.
I'm having memory failure here. Who is the Eagle defensive lineman who used to beat
Joe
him like
Osman used to beat him
Joe
like a
Osman
drum.
used to beat him like a rented mule?
Yeah.
And how did his career turn out? Joe Osman wished that he had 1/10 of Jordan Mailata's career earnings.
You know,
Jordan
Jordan
He'd be okay
gives
with himself.
Jordan Damo knows. Jordan, he called him Smoking Joe.
Yeah.
He gave him a lot of credit for helping him develop as a player. You know, it's Joe Osman was going to have a role. I forget what year it was under Jim Schwartz. They had him as they were turning him into sort of a joker player, a nickel rusher in the middle, was a good pass rusher, and then he tore his ACL in the preseason, was never the same. I do think he would have made the team that year and had a role, and who knows what happens from there. But he was a great practice squad player, and he really helped Jordan Mailata. Jordan says the same thing about LaRaven Clark now as a practice squad veteran, as a, helping him develop. Those guys have been very important to Jordan Mailata, but boy, I just, yes, Joe, though, on those one-on-one drills, Tom, he used to, they're like, yeah. Jordan, how do you recover from that? It's kind of amazing. And Stoutland hates one-on-ones because he's like, well, you're supposed to win if you're a defensive player.
Well, clearly, I mean, Jordan has special ability. I mean, that has contributed to everything. But another thing about him was, not everybody can handle Stoutland. I mean, especially when you know nothing. I mean, his yelling at you, would send a lot of guys off to back to rugby or whatever, or something else. Mailata took it and he took the criticism, took the shouting, and turned it into making him a better player. It's Jordan deserves a lot of credit for, you look at Dan. Remember Danny? What was his name? The offensive guard that retired.
Danny Watkins,
the fireman. I mean, he couldn't handle criticism. I mean, it just ate him up. I mean, the slightest criticism, he went and sulked. If that was Jordan,
Andre Dillard did that.
That's the biggest. That's a big difference in what makes Jordan Mailata and what makes a lot of other guys.
All right, we know Mailata is now the 4th highest paid left tackle in football, which may make him underpaid. And giving the Eagles
got a deal. Yeah, he's a nice guy too. He never. It's amazing to me. He is. If you did a poll, Damo, I think he would win nicest Eagles player.
Yeah,
and he's got $260 million. At some point, I expect him to turn into a prima donna. He's got all the other stuff. He can sing like he's Sinatra. He's on the freaking Masked Singer. He's so talented. I expect him to turn into this prima donna. It ain't happening. It's not happening. It's amazing. Maybe it's Australia. Maybe they're just making better people than we do.
Crocodile Dundee was a good guy too, John. So you might be right there. Here's my Mailata question for you, Damo. We know he's phenomenal at all aspects of the game, both protecting the quarterback's blind side, but also opening holes for the running backs to run through. We at times noted in given games, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but there would be games where the Eagles don't run more behind the left-hand side than they do on the right-hand side, which seems like mismanagement to me. You got two of the best run blockers out there in Mailata and Dick. Why would you not run heavy? I know it gets a little predictable, but the Cowboys were predictable too when they had the best offensive line ever. They said, yeah, we're going to open up a hole. We dare you to stop us. And nobody did. Will the new offensive coordinator take advantage to what on paper seems to be a massive Eagles strength that's running the ball behind their phenomenal left side? Will Kellen Moore take more advantage of it than this past year Brian Johnson did?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the great mysteries of last year's offense, why they didn't run more behind those guys. I think the fact that they went and signed both of these guys to huge extensions indicates that they're going to, get their money's worth going forward. So, and Kellen Moore strikes me as a fairly smart individual. So I would expect to see Saquon Barkley running a lot behind those guys this year.
You just made a lot of Eagles fans happy, Damo. They always want to see the Eagles running the football. We'll see if that develops.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, it's still Jeffrey Lurie's team. It's still Kellen Moore's an 11 personnel guy, just like Nick Sirianni. He wants the big plays in the passing game as well. And they still have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. They got to keep healthy. DeMonte's the next big contract. I know a lot of Eagles fans are chomping at the bit to get that done. I think that one's going to be more difficult for a couple reasons. One, they have the 50-year option, so there's not a sense of urgency. And I don't think DeMonte's giving him a deal like Jordan Mailata did.
Right.
I could be wrong, but I wouldn't. That's the advice. If I were an agent, I'd say sit there and wait until Justin Jefferson signs and let that tide raise the boat, so to speak, and just that's my strategy. Is that what you think Devonta Smith is going to do?
Well, I mean, it's not up to him. It's up to them more so, as far, I mean, if they want to sign him right away, they can by offering him money he can't refuse. But I think you're right. I think they're going to wait and see for a lot of reasons, including they want to see where he fits in this offense. I mean, nobody knows right now. We saw I thought one of the most revealing things Jeffrey Lurie said in his, State of the Eagles in Florida last week or 2 weeks ago was when he was asked about Barkley. I mean, what's the first thing he said? He said, they got him because he's a passing back, I think was the phrase he used.
Yeah.
Which basically, I've been saying this for a long time that they need to throw to their backs. And I think they're going to do it a lot with Barkley. But how does that impact the wide receivers and their numbers? So I think they're going to kind of wait. There's no way to keep both Devonta and A.J. Brown long term. I mean, one's got to go at some point here when their contract's up. I think they need to determine which one it's going to be. You would think it would be Brown at some point. But
he's so good, though.
I don't think they're in any hurry. I mean, I think they'd be willing to let him play into that option year if it came to that and then make a decision.
Let me ask you a question, Dom. The way you stated it, I understood the point you were trying to make. They could offer him a contract that he couldn't refuse, meaning just blow him out of the water.
Right.
When was the last time the Eagles did that with a player? Some teams do that. They target a player. They need the player. They have to have the player. Here's market value. All right, we'll go beyond it because we don't want to have to wait. We don't want to have to deal with the BS. Let's get this done now, even though we know it's an overpay. When did the Eagles ever do that?
Probably never. You're right, which is why it won't happen.
Right.
It's definitely not to a wide receiver. I mean, wide receivers are paid a lot of money, and it's the most fickle position in football. I mean, so I don't want to rush. I'm not going to, if I'm Howie, I'm not rushing to sign any wide receivers right now. He's got, he's always been a line guy. I mean, build in, from the inside out. And they're doing that with, the extensions to Dickerson and Mailata and, finding replacements eventually for, there'll be an offensive lineman early in this draft. That could be a replacement eventually for Lane Johnson in a couple of years. I mean, that's their concern. Those are the guys they want to lock up. I don't see them locking up a wide receiver right now.
Speaking of wide receivers, if you've got a grasp on this, because Damo covers the entire league for the 3013.com. When I first heard yesterday about the new deal that Stefon Diggs has in Houston, I didn't understand it. I said, whoa. You give up draft capital to get a guy who's under contract, and you immediately start lopping years off the contract so you can become a free agent?
They're all in, Jody. Houston is all in.
Rental guy?
All in.
How is that being all in? Being all in is trading for him. How is cutting years off his contract being all in? That just makes him a rental. Well, I have a theory. I want to see if yours matches up with mine. Why would Houston do that?
Because I think they told him, and they believe, they're confident they're going to sign him to a long-term deal, and this was a way to show him the faith they have in getting that done. See,
I think it's more about all right, we're going to lop it off. And he now knows he's got to have a big year to get his next contract, whether it's in Houston or somewhere else. He's got to perform to get that next big contract. And that, in theory, would help the Texans short term in a big way.
Yeah.
And, we talk about compensatory picks if they're smart. You're not guaranteed, bands, any compensatory picks when somebody leaves. But if he gets a big deal and you finagle it right, and Nick Cesario has been very smart, you will get a compensatory pick on the back end. I think it's about being all in, Jody, that we discussed yesterday.
Right, but who's the player we're talking about here? So you're saying he'll be more motivated because he's now a free agent at the end of the year. Stefon Diggs is one of the diva wide receivers in the league.
Yes,
so
he is.
If he's not being targeted 11 times a game, he's going to go, well, thanks anyway. I don't think
his history,
so. I think he'll be rocking the boat like you read about.
His history is early. He's happy. He was happy in Minnesota, and then he was happy in Buffalo, and then he gets unhappy. So you have that short window where he's happy, and I think he's happy in the short window. Eventually, you're right, and that's probably why they lopped off the years. They know he's going to turn into and plus he's aging.
Oh, so he's going to be good for the first 7-8 games.
Well, that's been his history.
That's negotiated come playoff time.
He
I
was
don't know
very.
if I were the coach.
He was very happy. People thought he would be unhappy in Buffalo when he left Minnesota because it's Buffalo, and he turned out to be very happy for a short window. And he was very successful for the Bills. Very good player, but he's aging. But that's the Texans' problem. The Texans look very good on paper, but the AFC looks, we talk about this every year. The AFC looks very good on paper as a whole. The NFC, again, looks far more wide open. And we've been using that term.
Texans look like the team much the best in that division now.
Oh, in that division, but the conference as a whole is still got Kansas City and Baltimore and everybody else. But Mike Sando does a nice piece in the offseason, Damo, where he talks to a bunch of different executives, sort of updating on the 32 teams. And he got a quote from somebody on the Eagles who said, I don't get it. They lack an identity, dating back to last year, pretty much. And I took that and I was talking to somebody, a different executive, and he said, yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Getting rid of Reddick, bringing on Barkley, that's not Eagles-like. Do you think the Eagles have been too reactionary to what happened at the end of last season?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think there's this, I don't want to call it a sense of desperation, but they want to be right. I thought they would take this year to kind of catch their breath. I didn't think they'd be as aggressive as they have been in free agency with taking the approach that, we've got to, we got to get cheaper anyway, add a lot of draft picks. So when Jalen's contract really starts to take its toll, we got the cheaper labor around him, the young guys. Instead, they went out and signed a whole bunch of guys and are going to make a run for it this year. A lot of those are one-year contracts. But, right now, you don't know what they are. I mean, they brought in a lot of mercenaries. You don't know. You got a new offensive coordinator. You don't know what the identity of that offense is going to be. You don't know. I mean, I like what they've done to their defense. I thought they've gotten much better than I thought they would be able to. I still have questions about that front four, even with Vic here. Bryce Huff, is he a one-year wonder? I don't know. I didn't understand the getting rid of Reddick. I told you last week I still thought there was a chance they'd bring him back because right now they're still an edge rusher short. They've got right now they've got Huff, they've got Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham. I'm not expecting a lot from Brandon. I mean, 10 snaps a game maybe. Nolan Smith is the jury's out. So, and Josh Sweat gave them half a year last year. So they're going to have to go get one in this draft and hope it's a guy that has an immediate impact, or hope that Nolan Smith is a lot better than he showed last year. But yeah, so I agree with that. You don't know quite what they are right now and how they're going to get it done. What their approach is going to be. Are they going to be a heavy run team this year? Are they going to throw a lot to the backs? You just don't know what this team is right now.
I think you're underestimating the contribution from Andrew Van Ginkel Light, a.k.a. Zach Vaughn, who's going to be coming off that edge.
Why did Howie do that, by the way, Damo? He does every once in a while. It's like, just don't talk about that. Don't say that.
Yeah.
He didn't bring up Van Ginkel's name, but he made it very clear Vic likes this type of player. And Van Ginkel had a very good year last year. And we'll see. He might be a one-year wonder. But, Zach Vaughn, why put that kind of pressure on him? You signed him to a 1 year, $3.5 million deal. If you thought he was Andrew Van Ginkel, you'd give him $10 million. And, I mean, why even say it?
A guy like that, I'd be interested to know whether Vic said, I really like this guy. I saw him. I watched the film. I think he can help us try to sign him. Or if it's strictly Howie. I don't know. We'll find out.
It could be Vic. Could be Vic.
It's good. I think there's a good chance that it's Vic because he specifically said a player like the coaches had down in Miami, which we put 2 and 2 together and came up with Van Ginkel. Was pretty easy. Why would he even bring Vic into the conversation if he wasn't influenced by Vic? All right, another defensive edge guy that you mentioned, Brandon Graham, 10 snaps again, whatever that number is. Yesterday, he took a whole bunch of snaps up at Bristol. At ESPN did the car wash thing, jumping on show to show because they got shows all day long. And he did say the Eagles' collapse was due to many miscommunications, but he would not expand on that. We can guesstimate as to what those miscommunications were. I have one specific question for you, then you can take it any direction you want, Tomo. Was one of those miscommunications Hassan Reddick seeking sacks, chasing sacks, going after sacks? As Jeff McClain reported this week that the Eagles felt that he was hunting sacks. Isn't that kind of what Hassan Reddick's supposed to be doing? Hunting sacks? Isn't that why he was here? Isn't that why they went to the Super Bowl? Because he hunted 19 and a half sacks throughout the entire year of 2020. What the hell?
Yeah. I kind of thought that's what you want your edge rushers to do. So I don't know.
I think, people took Jeff. I know he gets pissed off. I get pissed off. You say something on the radio and they take it out of context. One thing, there was a big, he was explaining, because they lack discipline on the defensive front as a whole late in the season. I think the Eagles were very disappointed. And that had to do with Matt Patricia, and that was a disastrous decision. It looked like all three levels, Damo, were playing different defenses at times.
Yeah.
But I think it was more disappointing up front because that's where the talent was. And those guys were just all over the place. And, I go back to Jim Schwartz. Discipline is a very important thing when it comes to the pass rush. You can't be freelancing. That's what the question is. But guess what? It happens all over the league until this league puts more context into. Jody knows I hate that stat, sacks. It's one of the worst stats because you can run into a sack. Chris Long did a great dissertation on this. Show me the sack. Sometimes it's an interior push and the quarterback runs right into you. It's not really your, but you get credit for it. But the teams in this league pay the guys who get sacks.
Yeah.
So, they chase sacks. They Jason Babin it at times, especially when you're losing. It's natural. It happens everywhere. But it wasn't just Hassan. It was everybody. It was everybody on that defensive front last year.
Yeah. I mean, I think what happened was, when the sacks didn't come like they did the year before, they started to get more undisciplined and more desperate in their pass rush. And they were leaving lanes for the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They faced a lot of quarterbacks that could move, that were able to, either buy time by getting outside the rush, by going through holes in the rush because people were rushing too wide. There was no discipline to their pass rush as the season went along, and that really hurt them.
And I believe that you should give your best defensive edge guys a little latitude. That you got to let them create a little bit. Now, I'm not saying do whatever the hell you want on any other play. Like John mentioned the famous name, Jason Babin, who I'm saying beware Josh Huff this year could become Jason Babin because he's a speed to the outside guy. And that's exactly what Babin was.
Mhm.
You got to give your defensive linemen, guys who get 4 straight years of double-digit sack, you got to cut them some slack. And you got to let them create a little bit. It's really easy to say, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. If you don't get there, that's okay, as long as you stay in your lane. No, get to the quarterback. However, you got to get to the quarterback. I would not come down on a guy who's got the kind of track record that Hassan Reddick had the 3 previous years, heading into last year. I think you got to let him eat the way that he wants.
Yeah, and their defensive tackles last year also, I mean, you can, I mean, that's where you want your rush. I mean, that's the most important part of your pass rush is getting that inside rush because you're forcing the quarter. I mean, first of all, the quarterback can't step up. He can't and step up into the pocket. And also it forces him out to the outside where your edge rushers are picking up those sacks. Carter and Davis did not really do that the second half of the season. They disappeared. Milton Williams, he's a nice player, but he's not special. So, the whole pass rush, I mean, you can blame a lot of that on the interior rush. It was just a mess all over. Like John had said earlier, it was a breakdown on all 3 levels. The tackling last year was just god awful at every level.
Especially late. The whole defense was awful late in the season.
Exactly. It was just awful to watch. I mean, it was hard to stomach to watch them. Third down when you knew they weren't going to stop teams. 3rd and 8, and you're still saying they're going to get a first down.
Yeah, I mean, 30th in pass defense, I think 31st in points. They were near the bottom in 3rd down defense. It was a disaster. At P Damo, follow Paul on X, does a tremendous job for the 33rd team.com. And one guy we never talk about because there's so much other stuff going on, Damo, is Jalen Hurts, man. The Rock took a shot at him. WrestleMania's in town. He took a shot at Jalen Hurts. He's a heel these days. Are you concerned about Jalen Hurts at all?
No. I think Kellen Moore will straighten him out. I think Jalen Hurts will straighten himself out. I'd be curious, how he's spent this offseason so far. I know he's working hard somewhere. Did he go out to California? I don't know.
I hope so. But I think he
track him. He's got a lot of things he needs, but the one thing about Jalen is he knows every time he's struggled in his career, going back to high school, he's always known what he needs to work on, and he usually fixes it. I'm more confident about him turning it around and correcting the flaws last year that he had than I am some other guys that suffer the same thing and never get it back. So it'll be interesting, but I'm fairly confident he'll be okay this year.
The last thing for me, how much UFL action have you taken in? You got your fill of spring football so far, Mr. Domowitch?
I'm gonna waiting for the playoffs.
Waiting for the playoffs. I like the kid who had a 64-yarder who hadn't and he hit 2 in a row, Damo. They called timeout to ice him. And he said, all right, I'll just do it again. Man, some of these kickers are just outrageous these days.
Yeah. Here's what I liked about the UFL. They had the XFL had the funky kickoff, which the NFL is now adopting. And the UFL said, well, if the NFL's taking it, screw them. We'll go back to regular kickoff returns. And they go link to the field. But John's right. They got most guys kicking out of the back of the end zone. And the UFL kind of looks like the NFL in that way. The kickoff returns aren't really part of it. Damo, we appreciate the fact that you've been part of Bird 365. since we got this thing going. We appreciate your contribution at JAKIBsports.com as well. And we always check out on 33rd Team. What do we got coming this week? You got an article coming up? You deep dive in anything for us on 33rd Team?
No, I'm not doing much for him right now. I'm kind of finally decided to get back and start working in earnest on the book on Sam Mills. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
All right, cool. Well, you got to keep us in tune with that as well. Damo, thank you very much. Enjoy your UFL watching this weekend or not. But thanks for jumping in with us today. Appreciate it.
Take care. And John, my condolences on Isabella.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Damo, fellow dog lover. Yeah,
all three of us.
Always tough week. Yeah, Jody.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Damo.
All Domowitch here with us on Birds 365. All right, quick timeout. We got Chris Franklin joining us in hour number 2. I said to John earlier in the week, Damo should be good for Friday, and then we need a second diehard Eagle guest, a guy who's been, since we're kicking off year 4 of Birds 365 today, guy who's been down the road with us and hopped on with us many times. Oh, Chris Franklin would fill out that definition. So MrNJ.com himself, Eagle Beat guy, Chris Franklin, coming up in about 20 some odd minutes from now. Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365. Hey, how would you like to save some money? That's what we're here for, is to save you guys money. Birds fans, how would you like to save 40% on your car insurance right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners? Here's what you need to do. Call one of the 2 managing general partners, either Fran or Jim, and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!